the big kind of breaking news this morning, I had plans for a totally different kind of podcast about freedom of speech and how it's been impacted by the European Union, and that'll have to wait till tomorrow now, was that we had news that I've been kind of known about, I've been aware of for quite some time, was the kind of a launch of a new political party by Ben Habib. The timing was came out a little bit different to where we were expecting it. And I think that'll show why, towards the end of this, why that timing is very important in politics. So we go into the background of this. Obviously, Ben Habib, former MEP, former deputy leader of Reform, ousted in the changes by Nigel Farage when he said he was coming back, when Nigel realised that he had a chance of winning a seat in Parliament, and was unhelpfully and pretty rudely dropped in a pretty bad way. And we've then seen the same apply to Rupert Lowe, elected as a Reform MP and then treated abysmally by Nigel and his team as well. And we've seen the changes of what's happened in Reform, where we've just even basically talked about Richard Tice saying he didn't really care, that the country is changing and will be like majority Muslim or non-British by a certain particular date. We've seen the abhorrence towards Tommy Robinson or people who support that kind of ideology. The continued attacks on Rupert Lowe, the taxation issues, which are more left-wing and Labour. So all of that has been going on in Reform, and we've seen people now, even recently, watching Nigel Farage laughing with the crossing of the floor of and a very cosy chat. First of all, with Keir Starmer in Parliament, and them laughing and joking, and now the one with Peter Mandelson at the American Embassy. So all of this is making a suggestion that something's not fit and proper in Reform, and that they're looking for power just for power's sake. They've got the influence, they've got the momentum, they've got the people backing them, but maybe they will not be the saviours of a patriotic party that is truly wanting Britain to change and go back to a way that was more positive about who we are as a nation. So Ben Habib has been thinking about this for a while. Talks are ongoing with Rupert Lowe for quite some time, and a number of other individuals, both on the right and the online right and others, to try and bring in an idea of a patriotic group of people. Ben Habib launches this morning on this very clearly. And he puts up, I won't play it for too long, it's just because we haven't got the time, and it's better to have the discussion about it. But maybe a bit too loud just to reduce it.
Hello, folks. Now, some of you will know me as Ben Habib, the political commentator. Others as Ben Habib, the former deputy leader of Reform UK, as I was. Ben Habib, the Brexit Party MEP, as I was. But today, I address you in a new capacity. I address you as the leader in waiting of Advance UK, a new political force on the British political landscape, a new political party. So why a new political party?
Right. So you can see very clearly there he's putting back to his history of what he's done to help, in his view, defend the nation state in the particular formats that he's done. And he's recognising that what many people have been saying for a while, we need a new political party, and a party that will challenge Reform. So he makes that. It's a very good video, very interesting, and he sets out some very good points because he is a great speaker. He comes out, he's intelligent, he's articulate, he's a great communicator, and he's a decent person who really genuinely believes in this country and really genuinely believes in making the fundamental changes and attacking those institutional kind of barriers, such as quangos and the civil service and the laws that are kind of restricting us from having any growth and protection of our nation. So he goes on, he sets out a nice little website where he introduces the kind of party as a whole, I'm just trying to get
scroll
mine.
down on that.
Yeah, scroll down. If you could do that for me, that would be fantastic.
Sorry, I'll just need you to stop
Oh, yeah.
moving the
Okay,
mouse
I'll
for a
stop
second.
moving.
That's all right.
Yeah. So he comes back there. He sets out in here, in that, a kind of mission statement, I think, as we're coming down on here. Why a new party? And it's quite an interesting little thing. We saw in the video, nothing has worked. Well, we argue about this and moan about this and show it all the time. But he puts out a nice, clear mission statement. And out of that mission statement, he's got 4 particular points that he wants to look at. The first is stand for the nation state of the United Kingdom, tick. Freedom of speech, tick. Democracy, tick. And equality before the law, tick. Those is his key fundamentals of what he's setting out as his mission for this political party. And the first point about that is I agree with all of them. But I would say, wouldn't of the political parties also argue that they're doing exactly the same? Isn't that what they would also say? Well, we do this as well, not that we agree with it.
Yes, I mean, obviously they've failed
Yeah.
to live up to them on
Absolutely.
every single one of them, but yes, they would say that.
So he's wanting to join 30,000 people to come and join this kind of start of a movement, help us mend it. And as I say, you go through there, the nation, freedom, democracy, equality under UK law. Again, it's all nicely set out. He then tries to be different, how we will work, and he sets out 5 key elements of this new political party, which I think he says really tries to differentiate himself from that of the company that's owned by Zia Youssef and Nigel Farage with no input of the political members.
This was, if I understand, Ben's greatest contention with reform. The fact that it was basically just Nigel's party. Nigel would always be in charge of the party, and Nigel would choose the successor of the party. There was no, if it's all about, returning authority of like the the direction of the nation to the British people, then that's not a very successful way to go about it.
Absolutely, and he sees the restriction of that. And so he's worked hard behind that. He's used lawyers, he's looked at different philosophies to try and come up with a kind of what he believes is a constitution that hopefully has members who elect a college. The concept is to be independent individuals who are like the great and good, holding to truth the founding principles of the party, who do not necessarily, you look at that, become part of, who are independent of the party executive and do not necessarily even get elected, potentially as MPs. They can't really, but they are just going to hold the executive, its MPs, to account. And this is our principles, and if you veer off it, you're gone, sort of thing, really.
Fair. It seems a little bit thin, though. Other than, okay, this is a decent way to run the party, the rest of it in terms of content, it's sort of washed over liberalism with the nation state added on top of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be very credible or well thought out. What do you think?
Well, I'm looking at this, and this is what some of the criticisms that we'll get down to when we go through it, is that here people are saying, you've got a great man, like him, love what he's standing for, but this idea of a college, okay, that's perfectly fine, but who are the leadership? Who are the board of directors already that you've got? You've even said in your opening kind of salve that you're interim leader. You don't even really look as though you want to be the leader. Where are your policies? What are we seeing on this? So it's a nice little front image. It's a nice video. It's got some nice statements. But where's the fundamental backing?
Where's the meat?
Yes.
Where's the substance?
Which is what people need.
And that's right.
Yes. I mean, the tragedy of it is that unless you've figured out everything from farming to fishing to industrial policy to immigration policy as well, to the NHS, you can't be that credible because of the way the system works. The British system is extremely complex.
Yes.
With the sheer number of ministers who are on the payroll, who are going to be required to govern, with the number of people who will need to go through legislation and decide how do you slash quangos, how do you reduce the size and influence of the civil service, and how do you change the ideological zeal of the civil service to something that is actually lasting. So unless you've got a Tony Blair style figure who can force through an enormous amount of change in a very short period of time and rely on popularity and explain that, look, this is going to involve an enormous amount of short-term economic pain. If you start firing quangos left and right and civil servants left and right and reducing the numbers of migrants and all of that, there is going to be an economic effect. Now, mind you, you will recover economically very quickly if you do the right things and accept that pain, because the sheer brilliance of this country. But you've got to be honest enough to explain what the pain is, where it's necessary, and how you're going to inflict it on a big chunk of people whose middle class status relies on them receiving money from the government because they work for these quangos, because they are civil servants, because they are employed by the NHS, etc., etc. So you've got to be able to communicate, okay, we want to get there. There are these intermediate steps. They're painful. They're strictly necessary. And this is what you could expect to see by the end of the first parliament.
And that is the chunk. That is the kind of meat.
That's the meat.
That's what the meat.
Whereas democracy and equality before the law, like Keir Starmer will never admit that there's no equality before the law.
He would.
What's Hermer sort of says, no, that's a conspiracy theory and it's evil and blah blah blah. So, like you're tilting at windmills here still. You're arguing over things that should have been argued during the 1965 Race Relations Act. And now here we are 2 generations later. This is reality. What's your answer?
And therein comes the point. So I'm going to go on and say, okay, look, we've got some people saying for nearly a year, I've said that reform is not the real deal, which is basically what Ben is saying. It's not the real deal. And it's also what Rupert is saying, and a whole load of people. I'm glad that Ben has acted. Wonderful. He's going to back him and support him. And then you'll have Richard Taylor, reasonable following on. He says, I'm going to follow him. It's great. Happy to announce the UK. So there's some support in there. And then you've got David Vance, I think, making a bit of a joke that it's got advance in his name. It's literally cool in there. And that I find is interesting about it, because David would normally support something like this out and out.
Right.
But he's making a joke about it.
Right.
And that's my first element of concern. When we're coming in. People are already beginning to make a joke about this element. Seemingly are more democratic than reform. So you got not only that, they're undercutting reforms, £15 membership because he's charging £10. I mean, that's one of his points. He says, I want 30,000 members. I'm going to give you all £10 to join.
Take £10.
And when I get 30,000, I'm going to donate 100,000 to myself. Well, that leads into the first criticism. It's an element of thinking about it. That's only £400,000.
Yes.
You can't run a political party on £400,000.
No.
When I was looking to lead UKIP all that time ago, I mean, it's nearly just under a decade ago, we were looking at the party needing £2 million a year. And most of that, actually, to be fair, most of that was coming through membership fees.
Right.
We only needed to top up about $500,000 a year
in
terms of big donors and other ways of doing it. And at that time, that was 2014-15, they were challenging the Conservative Party. They were doing well. The idea was that $5 million a year would actually really put the wind up Labour and Tories. And that's really a figure that you should be looking at in today's day and age of about $5 million a year. And you can't do it unless you've got the first fundamentals of who are your staff, who's your head of communications, who's your head of policy, who's running all the different organisations around the country, your regional organisers. All of these people are going to need to be paid. Who's helping you on research? They need to be paid, because some people will not do it for free. Your advocates will do it for free. The people knocking on the doors will do it for free. But the people who've got to do this 24 hours a day, who've got to concentrate on the door, need to be paid. And £400,000 will not go far.
No, you need a healthcare person, you need a housing person, you need an immigration couple of people, you need a foreign policy person, you need bench depth. You need industry, you need farming, you need fishing, you need rural areas. There's a lot of expertise required to sort of actually create radical change. And reform isn't showing that either. No. And the only people who have that level of expertise, unfortunately, are the Conservatives. and they
and
are
they
where
get
they are.
paid, and they get paid very well.
And they get paid,
look,
but look at where they are.
Basic researchers of the Conservative Party are getting £40,000 a year as a start-off.
Right.
But of course, then they're given different opportunities in think tanks and
Yes.
other areas where additional monies are provided to them.
Yes.
So if you're going to have a launch of a political party, you're going to at least need 10, 20 people who are being paid those levels of money, which to some in London is actually going to be realised as too cheap. I know that sounds awful to people who are earning a lot less than that. But in order to get that organised, that means that this political party needs at least £1.2 million a year to be able to fund people who know about immigration.
Yes.
You've got to have some deal there. Know about all the points you've raised.
Yes.
400,000 won't cut it. The £15, if you got to 30,000 people with £30 each, and he adds 100,000 of himself, there's £1 million. That's a reasonable start.
Yes.
It's a reasonable start, but 400,000 is going to be a weak point for him if he gets it.
Yep.
So, what about the media people? What are they saying? Well, Dan Wootton, normally a big supporter of Ben, just announces it. He's held talks with Elon Musk, and he's held talks with Rupert Lowe, but Rupert Lowe is not joining. Now let's park that, because aren't those two the big beasts outside of Nigel Farage?
So this, yeah.
Yeah, who are the big beasts in the Conservative Party? Possibly Jenrick raising his head, but he's still actually relatively weak in polling terms.
Right.
Farage is the big beast out there, and none of Reform's others come anywhere near.
No.
So the two big beasts on the right who could potentially form a political party to challenge Nigel are Ben and also Rupert. Yep. And when you come to the United States, I've had lots of calls with people in the United States, talking to people who funded PACs and Trump directly through fundraising campaigns. All of them say, yeah, we've heard of Rupert Lowe. We know that he's had conversations with Elon, and we've heard of Ben,
Right.
but are not in the same level. They're both recognised as being important, but there's a differential.
Yes.
Rupert is an MP.
Yeah.
He's also
He's
done,
got a lot more credibility.
and that MP is the credibility. That's exactly the point. You get it. So not joining creates an issue.
It makes the whole exercise by Ben Habib seem a bit pointless.
And that's a bit of a...
So
Yeah, and that's becoming the big danger. Maya Tusi, who I know also personally likes Ben Habib very much, launches a new political party. Neither of these so far is we support it or think
no
it's great.
excitement, no.
It's silent because they're holding their tongue. Jim Ferguson, launch it, same sort of thing. And then you come in the criticisms. First of all, this is where a big issue. When you type in Advance UK into the websites, that's what you get.
This is, for me, first and foremost, the name just doesn't work.
No.
Right? It just doesn't work. It sounds... it doesn't inspire any sense of vision. It has no music to it. You know, as bad as the parties are, Labour, is a word that has some colour to it, right?
Yeah.
Labour is an evocative word. It makes you think of work, and it makes you think of, it reflects the working class roots of the party, right? Conservative, right? It has an image to it, a gravitas to it. Advance. To where? To what?
Can I get an advance, please?
Yeah, it doesn't. it sounds corporate.
It's a fair.
It doesn't have any.
It does sound corporate. Yeah. That's the point. And that's what people are picking up, and I just come along and they say. And also the fact that his X account is _Advance UK, where this lot is Advance UK.
Right.
So already you're choosing a name that's going to cause masses of issues.
There's been a lot
in
of
Google's,
PR around
in Google
the video.
search and all the rest of it. So people are going to be looking for your political party. They're going to get this. And some are saying, well, this one's closed or it's defunct. It doesn't matter. It's out there. Is it fully registered with the Electoral Commission? The answer is no. Ben has said he's not put Advance UK. So all it now takes is somebody to register Advance UK with the Electoral Commission, and his name's gone. So he's announced to the world, we're not registered with the Electoral Commission. So someone could do it. And then obviously Catherine Bakelot says, look, there's a Liberal Democrat movement out there already. So there's criticism over the name. Then now there's criticism of the splits. Where does he fit himself in? And this is one of the key points that I wanted to say about bringing Ben and Rupert together. Yes, I know there are discussions. Both of them respect each other immensely. Both of them have had disagreements about where we go with this. Clearly, Ben has said, I want to launch this party, and when we'll come to the end of this piece where Rupert has gone. But the reality is now you have Reclaim, which is defunct. That's just Lawrence Fox sitting there enjoying himself. You know, the Heritage Party, which again is David Curtin.
I like David Curtin.
David Curtin is great. It's been there for a while, but how many members is that?
Yeah.
Really, how is he going to make any impact? Homeland, good branding, a lot more members growing up there, but what's the difference between them and UKIP, apart from the fact that they seem to have a falling out? They're very similar in that. And now Advance UK. So you have 5 parties quite clearly saying, looking for the populist national right, is now divided between, and they've added reform in there. I would turn around and say yes, to an extent.
That's a huge favour to the establishment.
Absolutely.
It's a huge favour to the establishment that's being done.
All those others, Homeland, UKIP, Heritage, should be turning around and saying we're too small, too underfunded, not popular enough to be able to advance the cause. We need to fall behind somebody who is believing in that patriotic.
And that somebody needs to be able to draw them in. So that somebody needs to be not ashamed of them and be able to sort of draw them in.
Absolutely.
And if you do that, you can tame what you might see to be excesses among some of them, and you can give them a pathway to government and give them experience in proper frontline politics, without which they don't stand a chance. So this is just a battle of personal egos and brands at this stage, and it's very embarrassing.
It makes it very hard as well, and this is not Ben's fault.
No.
But it makes it very hard as well to make your own party after what happened to Ben, and for it not to simply be like the Revenge on Nigel party.
Yes.
That is how it will be perceived by a lot of people out there.
And unless he launched at the same time with Rupert, that's exactly what it's going to look like. I'm afraid to some people they're already making that case out there. Which in some ways is not very fair on Ben.
No, I agree.
It doesn't really matter whether it's fair or not. And that political perception, the political capital is what's that. And that's why I think you're getting the media and the online media being very calm and tame about it. Because they're saying, we don't want to offend Ben because he's a nice guy. But this does look exactly like that because it's not moving out there with a whole launch of people behind him.
And
He needed more.
Even before Farage came back, Reform's position on policy was pretty weak.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they had developed positions and policies under Tice and Habib, and then Nigel came back and wrecked it. It's just that it was always a bit amateurish.
Well, they could be popular because they weren't the Tories, because they weren't in the old. They weren't part of the old guard.
I'm increasingly convinced that the only answer is for the Tories to be actually Tory, and to sort of,
Well, that's what people.
Well, they've not managed it for 200 years, but maybe.
No, that's the political point. And again, I'm going to whip through a couple more of the criticisms here. We're locked in a struggle for each of them, vying for voter base. It all looks like it's characters first and branding second. And rather than turn around, none of these are bad individuals.
No,
I've met most of them.
No,
I mean, to be fair, I haven't met Nick Tanconi on UKIP, but I understand he's a decent guy. Yeah. All of them got the same principles of wanting to save the country and work together, but all of them are looking like it's just my brand, my name, rather than working together. There are strategically different views on some of them, and that's policy, but that should be worked out by bringing them all together at the table. This was an opportunity to do that, an opportunity lost.
Yep.
Basil the Grey talks about Rupert Lowe not joining. And that becomes the big issue that you've just talked about. Yep. Interesting then, the political parties, Reform. Quite rightly, I would do exactly the same if I was head of PR. Says nothing about it, ignores it completely. Yeah. Why would they bother?
No, there's no reason.
At the moment, the best thing, online, Connor Tomlinson says nothing about it. Again, coming on here, Charlie Downs says nothing about it. The online movement is saying nothing. And that goes to another thing about where we are, is that the way it's launched. Monday morning, 7:30, online. Okay, I want the onliners to come around and support me, but the online community is not the politics of people as a whole. There's a broader spectrum. It's a nice vocal point. You should have a launch. A proper launch in which you set out the individuals, the imagery, the branding, the characters, the policies, And you release more policies over a period of time. You release more individuals that are with you over a period of time. You start spreading it, and you also utilize, in some ways, just the online. You could just do it in front of the online. You have a studio in which you invite all the online, or you do it in an office somewhere, you invite all the online, and let the main media have to buy it off them.
Yes.
Let them buy it.
Yeah.
But no, it's quietly done, and that's where it dies.
Yeah, announcing a party with a tweet on a website is just...
Yeah. No, I look at this, it's just something that's interesting for discussion, but the right needs superstar recruits, clearly articulating, as you said, it's the policies, immigration, economy, need to somehow include the Tommy lot too. This is the kind of desire of people to get out there. And then we come here, I think, I just wanted to run through, maybe that's what he's up against. Yes, these numbers have come down considerably, 30,000 or so. People are leaving that. At 309,000 we'll take over. It's not going to get to the Labour Party. People are leaving now. But it's still 229,000. That's his target to face. Conservatives, Liberal Democrats, still, even Green Party, big numbers.
Yep.
You can't just rely on 30,000 at £10. You need to be a political party. And then the shocker about an hour or two later, just as we're coming in, this I didn't expect it. The two of them launching on the same day. I mean, my God, it's going to send confusion amongst the ranks of the right.
It's just...
Rupert launches Restore Britain. Restore Britain. I mean, first of all, talk about the name. Advance or Restore, which is the winner?
Well, Restore's the winner.
Restore's the winner.
Between those two.
Yeah, but it's not a political party. It's a movement who believe we need fundamental change, the way Britain is government. We'll build a policy platform together. A movement will be created together. A path will be forged together. So he's not saying I'm a political party at the moment, because there are lots of people who are arguing that he should take over the Tory party. Maybe there's some within his group that believe that. Others say, well, just give the Tory party an opportunity to see that their numbers are declining. Our movement will grow. We'll take the best from the Tory party. And therefore, I don't want to frighten everybody else off. Maybe that's their strategy. There's a lot more behind it.
It's a far better way of going about things, though, because then all of a sudden what Rupert's really announcing here is obviously the beginning of a discussion with those who want to get on board with policy.
Yes.
Right? And so that invites you to join because you've got an actual... You're not just a member. He doesn't just want your money. You actually have a voice in where it's... what the actual policy itself is. That'll create some level of consensus. From there, you can move, to more, stronger direction. What am I trying to say? The sturdier platform, sturdier foundation to build off of.
Absolutely. And what I kind of know from this is that the idea is we don't mind which political party you're already a member of. You could be a member of Reform, you could be a member of Conservative Party, you could be independent, you could be a member of any of those other organisations we've also mentioned. But you join the movement because the movement's the same principle. We want Britain back. He's very clearly dealing with immigration. He's got some policy ideas that he's already said about who he is. But this Restore Britain will come in. You join in. Then we're going to start looking at policies. You can be involved in it. You won't be involved in it. You might not wish to be involved in it. But we're going to start building this together. And if it gets to a level where you're talking 30, same sort of numbers as Advance, 30,000 or 50,000, then there will be pressure to say either, look, Tories, join us, because you're about to be taken over.
Yes.
Or, well, we'll only take those of you who really want to, Swala, Liz, for example, but we'll also take those on the right from different parties, and we will form a party then. And I think that's really where this idea is at the moment. Give the opportunity for people to come together of all political spectrums, look at the policies, do you agree? And then there is the challenge. We kill the Tories completely and take it over. Or if they're not willing to move that way, we launch a political party, which may well be the use of Ben's, but I don't think it'll be under that name.
No, of course not.
I don't think it will. And so he sets itself out. He's very clear about the objective.
The thing is, this is easily a 2 or 3 year project.
Yes.
And, getting close to 2026 now.
Yeah.
I share your anxiety.
So-
Don't you worry.
It's a couple of years before there's the election. This fragmentation shouldn't be happening.
No.
There should be a lot more seriousness about it.
Yes.
And the thing is, so long as Badenoch is sitting there as the sort of the head of the Conservative Party, this issue is unresolved.
Yeah, and I think at the moment it's both of these, the instability within the Conservative Party and the lack of decision making of what party they are. Are we a party of the left and Liberal Democrats who's still there, the Michael Goves of this world?
Yes.
If we're still that party, then by all means go on there. And anyone who's serious Conservatives need to make a decision within the next year or so, and even less than that, and I would argue.
The next 6 months.
And either go, look, we've got to either join one of these, because on the other side, we've got Reform, who are making waves. They will do successfully in Wales next year. They will trounce. And so that movement will lose an opportunity. And I think that's what people are thinking. Okay, Reform's going to be there. We can be the party right under the Conservative banner. It can't be where it is now, because the Conservatives will not change between that dichotomy. So we're losing time, and the only winner out of this in the end will be the Labour Party, because they will still stay in power, backed by SNP, Liberal Democrats, Green Party members.
Coalition to save the Progressives, just as you get on the continent.
Absolutely,
Just as you get on the
absolutely,
continent.
and they'll keep Farage out.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.